All right. So like I said, what we're going to be doing today is really, I just took an excerpt out of the rubric for assignment 8, and we're going to do this together in class just to make sure that everybody in this classroom knows what they are expected to do for assignment 8. There's no reason for me to hold out an assignment and ask you to bring it in if you have no sets. That's kind of what we're going to be working on today. I sent out the rubric for assignment 8. And it's a new rubric. It's kind of updated from what we went over in class. You saw the email. If there's anybody who was starting to work on it, I looked on D2L. D2L is a good tracker of who went. It doesn't look like anybody started doing assignment 8, or at least went to download and view the old document. So as a result of that, but again, if D2L is not working, let me know. What I did offer is that if you started doing assignment 8 with the incorrect rubric, which is not, but just slightly different, that I can give you a slight extension as a result of working on it. But what I do need is evidence that you were trying to do this assignment with the old aspect. There were a little bit of tweaks in there that, since we're doing correlations this semester, and as opposed to what we were asking before, the language was off, and it would probably put you in an area. It's like, Dr. Barnes, I do not know what you're saying. All right. So no need to sit back and speak up right now. If that's you, just put the evidence of what you've been trying to do in the Dropbox, which would be the wrong way. I'll look at it, and I can give you a kind of a soft extension since you were led the wrong way. I didn't hear from anybody, and the data suggests that nobody had started working on the rubric yet. So I think we're all in the clear. I guess procrastination is the best station that we're all working on for this semester. Now, with that said, I'm going to go over the rubric. Now, the rubric, when creating these assignments, is usually very repetitive. Again, I heard the little chimes coming in. It's a lot of new people here. I do want to remind everybody that we need our cameras on. We've got one exception, and I know that you definitely addressed it, and I see that most of our cameras are on. All right, guys. And again, I apologize for being a hypocrite. But what you see on the screen, if you guys are able to see my screen, let me just double check. Yes, you can see it. This right here is an excerpt from the actual rubric. And what it is it just took out one section. We have this process. We're going to repeat it several times when we're doing the assignment. And I want to make sure that we all know how to do this task. I'll just say first test, just because we'll have it. Now, the first requirement that we're going to be doing on here is to sit back and say that it must introduce the second test performed. Right now, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to sit back and kind of assign everybody in this group to a different assignment. That way, everybody can work on something unique. That way, when you put these answers in the chat, you're not necessarily doing something that's taken away from the learning of another individual. All right, so who do we have in the chat? All right. All right. Let's move this around a little bit. All right, so I'm going to put in text right here. All right, DM, that'll be Dwyer McNeil. Go right here. That's your cell. All right, we have DW for Daria. I'll also put, I can't even, I'm going to do DWI for Wilford. All right, Alex McBean is here. All right, who else is in here? Siani Goodman is here. Noni Peaks. Eric Hampton. All right, let's see if I'm missing.
Wait, can you see me?
No, I can't see you.
No? Wow. So I don't know.
Yeah, don't worry about it. We'll get it fixed. Honestly, there's no reason to stressing yourself out. Maya Davis, Destiny Summers. If I got anyone, I think that's it. Now, is anyone see their initials on here?
Yes.
All right. And who said yes?
You said who all see their initial or who all don't see their initial?
Or who does not see their initials? You are right here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem, no problem. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to sit back and assign everybody context. Now, again, to understand this, we got to make sure we understand what these results and these variables are. And just from looking at it, with one I grabbed that it seemed like it was really easy to understand. Now, the Wechsler IQ test is, again, I'm just going to sit back and say it's an IQ test, right? We don't got to go into much detail. This is not personality, right? But it's just an IQ test, right? And then we have a depression test score, right? Which is, again, I'm not going to go into too much detail in it, but that's a situation in which it's a test that's giving you a depression score. I would imagine higher scores mean higher rates of depression. We also have an anxiety test score. We have a social functioning test score. And then we have a general well-being test score. They got a little typo in there. I guess we're not the only place that makes mistakes or not perfect. All right, now, what I want everyone to do to make sure they can read this chart, right? Everybody was assigned a cell. What I want everybody in this class to do is to do me a favor, and I want you to type in chat what two variables you have been assigned, because every value, I can't do this one, I'll do this one, but it's not real. This right here, right? If you sit back and attend to this column, you also attend in this column. If this were the one that I would sign, I would sit back and say, all right, I have social functioning times social functioning. So the two variables that I would put in would be social functioning and social functioning. Now, again, I pick one that's not giving anybody in the class an answer. Everybody in this room needs to sit back and look at where their initials are and indicate what two variables they have been assigned. All right, got 6 aspects in the chat. Seven, waiting for some more. All right, waiting for one more, I believe.
I think there's something wrong with my iPad because I can't see your screen anymore.
You can't. Now, you know what? The one thing I would tell you is insert rows below. One thing I would tell you is just to make sure if you have any other documents. I've dealt with a lot of people. I have this woman I work with on this committee, and she's always claiming the same thing. The one thing that I always find when we use her to share her screen is that she has so many other software and things that are open. So if you have a lot of other things that are open on your computer, I would suggest that you close those. And then oftentimes getting rid of those other things, you'll find that it was there. It's just like you were in the wrong window. Not saying it's going to work, but that's one thing I would suggest. I think she left and she's trying to get back in.
Yeah, like your screen is not coming up.
Okay.
Oh.
now let me see. The one thing I might be able to do to help you is this. Let me see if I can print screen really quickly. I'm gonna make a picture.
I can't even send this picture.
All right.
Okay, never mind. I see it. I see it
Okay.
now.
All right, okay, let me get out of here then. All right, what in the world am I doing? Don't save changes. Okay. All right. Now let's go back to what we're saying right now. The first thing that we need to do, right? I want to erase some of this, but not all of it. First thing that we want to do is introduce the second test performed, right? So we need a statement. Now remember, the statements that you guys are creating are statements that are, you need to get 5 points out of it, right? So again, doing a half-ass statement might get you 2 or 3 points or 4 or 5, and you'll lose that point. But you want to introduce the test. Now the test that we're doing is really going to be a bivariate correlation coefficient, right? So we're going to do a correlation test or a bivariate correlation coefficient. So what I want everyone to do, and you can do this, you can do this in the chat as well. What I want people to do is to introduce a statement. Now, what I would sit back and say, if I were doing this, so I'm sit back and put it on the screen for you. Let me see. I'd say first test is a bivariate correlation test between, I forgot what I had on the screen. So I'm gonna say social attitudes versus social attitudes. I'm going to be a little bit fancy and then say tested at a 0.05 significance level. Right now, that's me. I must introduce the second test performed. Now, we're not doing a t-test. So if I were doing a t-test, we'd probably say the first test is, a t-test between this variable and that variable. If we were doing a z-score, we would say the first test is a z-score test on certain values. But since we are doing a correlation coefficient, I'm going to describe it as being that, right? So the first test is a bivariate correlation coefficient test between social attitudes versus social attitudes tested at a 0.05 significance level. Now that's what I'm doing to introduce my test. Now each of you can have a little bit of creativity. I should see 9 comments. I already looked at the chat, but I want 9 attempts at everybody in here introducing their first test. And that introduction is consistent with this slide. Let me go back to it again. All right, I got 2 contributions thus far. All right, 4 contributions are coming in. And I'm going to actually look at them to give you guys feedback in the event that we're in the wrong direction. All right. All right. Now, Alex, you got a nice little comment in here. Bivariate correlation test between general well-being versus the Wechsler IQ test. Yeah, it's perfect. Now, again, you can add more information in there if you wanted to about the significance level. However, my suggestion is not a recipe for the only way that you have to do it. So again, I don't think anything is wrong with that. Let me see. Daria Washington. Same thing. Deja. All right, now for you mentioned the first step. I just want to make sure that you clarify that we're talking about the first test. The statements that we're talking about is the fact that we're doing a test and it's a correlation coefficient test. You put step, which might just be an overstatement or kind of just me from how I probably go back and forth with what I'm saying. But again, I want to make sure that we know that it's the first test. You're talking about a test, not a step. All right. Between social function and test score. All right, Siani. All right, now, I like this. I love the variability. Now, she actually indicated that she wanted to have a different significance level. That's fine, but I will tell you this. The 2 conventions that we use for our significance level are 0.05, or if you wanted to, you could make it 0.01. But any other value that you pick is just it's not common in psychology. So if you do want to be different, and I appreciate that, right? You do want to be different, I would either pick one of those. I'd pick the 0.01 value as opposed to the 0.003. All right. Derek, let me see. You actually did it in 2 different sentences. I like that. And let me tell you, I like that because everything needs to be clear and concise, right? And oftentimes I tell people the best way to make sure if you're struggling with your writing is to only have one thought in a sentence at a time. And that's exactly what he did. He did what I did over here in 1 sentence, but he kept it into 2 distinct sentences. And that's just easier to be able to address and correct and read. All right, Noni. Actually, I like that. She's playing around with different terminology. I think she's the first one to call it a Pearson correlation, right? That's excellent. There's more than one way to address this. All right, Tamaya Davis. All right, excellent. Now, Tamaya, same thing I'm saying with you. I think I said with Siani, you use a different significance level, right? But in psychology, you're probably only going to get a 0.001, which is what you wrote. Might have been a slip of the finger, but you're probably only going to get a 0.001 in some of the most obscure aspects of psychology. So again, if you want to deviate from the 0.05, that's fine. But in psychology, the only conventions we typically use are 0.005 and 0.01. I think I said that wrong. I added another 0 in there. Sorry, guys. All right, excellent. All right, excellent. Good go, guys. And I hope this feedback I'm giving you is not in any way, shape, or form making anyone feel uncomfortable. All right, so we all know how to do this first aspect. It should not be a surprise with anyone how to do this. the next thing we're going to do is it must describe 3 descriptives of the variable for the first test. Now, this is one of those things that I think the size of my rubric makes it so it can be a little bit confusing, right? If you guys remember, we also created data sheet. I got to get rid of this. I can't get rid of it. All right, everybody knows what variable they are, right? Because I don't want to sit back and I'm going to remove this annotation, but I would hate for someone to come back and be like, oh, Dr. Barnes, I forgot what correlation is supposed to be mine. So does everybody know what, actually, no, I'll do this. I'll take a screenshot. I know I'm going to get it. All right, print screen. Let's make a new slide. Yeah, so if somebody forgets, we can come back. All right. It must describe 3 descriptives of the variable for the first test. Right now, what do we mean by describing 3 descriptives? Everybody got a variable that annotate. And this table included the mean, it included the standard deviation, and it also included on a scale of 5 when you're doing it, what percent, actually what you guys have are numbers, but since everybody has a different n in the value that they're looking for, I decided to do percentages. So I'm already giving you the percentage as opposed to giving you the number and then making you calculate the percentage. Now, what I want everyone to do with this is based off your variable, we're going to use the same data, but I need you out of this right here to create and 3 descriptive statements that's based on the information that you have right here. And I'm going to give you some examples of how this can look and what it would look like, right? Now, variable 1 is the first variable. Now, for me, it doesn't really make any sense because I'm making these things up, right? I'm going to say the mean for the first variable is 4.75. Now, I got to do 3 descriptives. I did that. That's 1, right? The standard deviation is 0.86. The standard deviation, I don't want to say first variable. I'm going to say social, I don't know what I said, social impact. The standard deviation for social impact is 0.68, right? Now, I can sit back and get a little funky with what we're going to do a little bit next. I can sit back there and be creative in the statements, and I want to show you that this is where the variety and the individuality comes. I could sit back and say that 70% of the participants obtained a rating of 1 or 2 on social impact. Now, I hope you guys can see where I got that from. Now, this right here is F1. I explained this last week. This is the percent of individuals who gave themselves a rating or got a rating of 1 or 2. So I actually can do that. I add those 2 together, and that's 70%. Now, that's me being fancy, right? Another acceptable comment is to sit back and say 35% of the participants obtained a rating of 1 on a scale at 5. That's another possible example, right? And again, I also don't have to focus on 1 and 2. I could sit back and say only 6% of the participants obtained a rating of 6%. Now, again, I'm showing you all these examples just to let you know how there's so much variety that you can do when doing these tasks, right? You can have any combination of playing with these values, any combination of playing with those values. So what I want to do right now is I want people to, in chat, I'm going to delete this.
Wait, that last one, only 6% of participants obtained a rating of 6%.
Oh,
How'd you find that?
yeah, I messed up. Obtained a rating of 5. Here we go. Good catch, right? So again, I could have done anything. I could have sat back and asked, I could have reported or focused on F3, which might be considered kind of a neutral rating, right? I could focus on adding 3 and a 6 together like I did for the 1 and the 2. There's so many different ways an individual can go about this. And again, that's why, like I said, when I catch people submitting the same assignment, it's usually people like, oh, I don't get it. Like, it's the same data. How can it be different? And I just fail both. Just because yeah, there's no way that you're going to have the exact same type of response unless there's inappropriate behavior going on, or you're not in class paying attention or understanding what it is we're trying to promote. All right, so let me separate this just a little bit. These are all different statements now. What I want people to do in chat is to give me 2 statements. Now for the rubric, you have to do 3, right? But what I want to do right now, just to make sure that we understand what we're doing, is I'm going to ask people to, using the data, let me delete this, I want to clear this now. Using this data, and variable 1 can be whatever variable you have you're assigned, just use these statistics as if that's real. Variable 2 can be, you can switch variable 1 and variable 2. The only thing you want to do is to make sure it's consistent. I want you to give me 2 descriptives describing how participants in your study responded on these variables. You can focus on the percentage of people who rated each item. You can focus on the standard deviation. You can focus on the mean. What I'm asking for, 2 of them. All right, put those in chat. I'll double check them just to make sure they're looking good. And yeah, we'll have 2 of those items taken care of. All right, that's a good one, Siani. All right, Alex, like you raised your hand. You got a question?
Repeat the question. What are we doing?
Somebody else let them know, what are we doing?
I'm sorry, Dr. Barnes, I can't see the screen anymore.
All right, you can't see the screen. How about right now? Can you see the screen now?
Yeah.
All right, there we go. All right, everybody, I need someone, we got to pause and stop. I know some of you guys are working, but we got a question from Alex. What is it that we're doing?
Yeah, I would like to know what it is we're doing. So I'm a bit confused. You said the assignment. So you're talking about what was on the slide previous?
All right, let me go back to it. Yep, this right here is on the slide previously. This what you mean?
Yeah.
All right, now what we're addressing right now is we are doing this task right here. We're going to describe 3 descriptives of the variable for the first test, or the variables for the first test. And I go over, I gave a whole bunch of examples on how to do that. Let me clear that. And this is the information that we're going to use. All right, Siani's, yours looks good. Eric Hampton. Okay. Now, the only feedback I'm going to give you on yours, Derek, is just in the fact that you have a little bit of creativity in there. You sat back and said that, and your stats are right. 50% of the subjects either selected 3 or 5, right? My question is, what made you jump from 3 to 5 as opposed to focusing on like 3, 4, and 5? So it is factual, but you want to sit back and make sure that you have an idea about what's going on and why you're stating it. Tamaya
Okay.
mentioned 21% answered 5. All right, now what I see what you're doing with that value right there is it looks like you're adding these two variables up. You don't want to do that. If you're doing that, what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're focusing, because this right now is all the information about variable 1, and this is right here is all the information about variable 2. Uh-oh. So you don't want to add those. When you're talking about them the way that we are, you want to make sure that you stick within this right here. Going across one variable to the other, that would be a no-no. All right, the only thing I see wrong, Alex, you got a comment in here. You're saying the standard deviation for the second variable is 0.34. The only problem with that is that, again, the second variable is the variable that you were assigned previously. So you just want to make sure you put the context in there. You don't want to say the second variable. You want to say what's the second variable that you were assigned from that previous slide. And to give you a quick reminder, your second variable, let's clean this. Your second variable would either be the general well-being test, or it could be the Wechsler test score. I mentioned before, you can switch either way, making either one be your first variable or your second variable. It's really up to you. All right, the Y, the same thing. I would just tell you to make sure that you kind of replace the whole variable 2 with the actual name, pick one of them. All right, Tamaya, same thing I'd say to you. Again, you want to put context on what variable 1 is and what variable 2 is. But your data looks like they're accurate. All right, let me see, make sure I'm looking at all these comments in here. All right, Deja, you mentioned you're confused. You still confused?
I think the graph is throwing me off.
All right, so the graph, you see what's on the screen, correct?
Yes.
All right, now again, this is carryover. This is really why I need to make sure that we're engaged as we possibly can and why our cameras are on and stuff like this, right? Now, this graph, what does F1, F2, F3, and F4 refer to? And I'm going to make it simple by getting rid of everything on variable 2. What do those things mean and refer to?
Is it like the rows we were assigned?
Is it, you said the rows that you were assigned?
Or
Uh,
how?
It's like the options like A, B, C, D, like what we did on our survey, but it's formulated into F1 and F5.
Isn't it the participant?
Answered on the scale. Which number did you
Right.
choose?
Yeah, 1 through 5.
Yeah.
All right. Now, you know what? I hear it's a lot, and I'm glad you guys could participate, so I'm not going to knock it. But I did hear the right answer, so I'm going to sit back and do it, right? Now, we got to imagine that each of these items were on a scale that the participants saw, and there were options that were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This was discussed last week. It's carryover. I didn't talk about it today, right? For variable 1, we found that out of our participants, I think I saw a number 116, 35% of the 116 people that took this survey responded with a value of 1. Now, whatever this variable is, that's different for everyone. So that everybody can have a unique variable that we're looking at. So for your variable 1, whichever you say it is, 35% of the individuals responded and scored a score of 35%. We also see that 35% responded the value of 2. 20% responded here. 3% responded the value of 4. And 6% responded right there. Right, there must be some little decimals in there because they're not adding up to 100 perfectly, right? But that is what we're looking for. And we have to understand that. We have to remember that in order to make sense out of this graph. So that's what this is. We had 116, I think I saw on some of you. Your response, let me go back and look at this. I don't know if everybody had 116. 116 here, I see 112 there, 117, but the aspect is really the same. Out of whatever number of people responded on your unique cell, which might be different, right? That's the percent of participants that responded with a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, or a 5. All right. Let me see. Then this right here is almost redundant because I just want to make sure that you do it. You pretty much get 5 points for just trying. It must include results of the first test using the 3-step process. So even if you try it, you get 5 points if it's a reasonable try. And then what you do is if you do the first step correctly, you get 5 points on the rubric. If you do the second step correctly, you get an additional steps on the process. And then if you get the third step accurate, you get an additional 5 points. But again, this is competitive. Again, this is why I always argue individuals who try to do this assignment without looking at the rubric, who just wanted to do a results section because they heard or thought or saw, there's a lot of points you can lose. You can lose 20 points just from not following the 3-step process, right? So what I want to do right now is ask everybody, looking at this right here, everyone should have their own results. I'll put them up right here. I want you all to type in the chat your 3-step process for your variable that you selected, right? And I will go over the 3-step process really quickly. 1, state if significant. 2, include value and P and significance. I say sig, just to make it short. And then 3, explain the relationship. All right, we got 5 minutes. You guys have your cells that you guys have picked. Let's see if we can do the 3-step process in the chat. This is based off what we've done last week. All right. All right, and it looks like you guys are kind of piecemealing what I'm getting in here, doing it. What I'm going to ask of the two people, I won't say your names, I don't want to call anybody out, right? But what I will say is this, let's put it all together. So in this chat, when you're giving it to me, you can give me step 1, 2, and 3 all together, pretty much in a paragraph.
Dr. Barnes, are we still including the value and the significance if it's not significant?
Are you still including the value if it's significant? Yes, meaning you're going to include the R value. And then if we're talking about the P value, which is everybody's P value is kind of listed right here as a signet, you're still going to list both of those. You don't skip anything just because it's not significant or not.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
No problem, no problem. All right, now Derek, the only thing I'm going to ask you to do is you got to remember how we include the results, right? And I'm going to send this right back to you so that I'm not spilling the beans on everybody. You put it in a sentence, right? And a better way would have been like what I'm sending to you right now. And you can tap that on right to the back of the first sentence that you wrote. Again, this is continue on of what we learned from the previous class. I think that's what's really difficult, I think, with this class. It's building on from what we're doing. We can't come to each class with a blank slate. Okay. All right, Destiny, I see your comment. Okay. Now, Destiny, you need to look at your stats because your stats definitely are. Now, this is what we talked about before. I'll say this with everybody, right? Put this on the screen. If your significance is less than 0.05, it is.
I got it.
All right. And if your significance is greater than 0.05, not significant. All right, Derek. That looks, you can go. I think you got this.
Am I missing anything else?
Let me see.
Because I feel like I am.
Yes, you didn't do the third step. And the third step
Yeah.
to explain the relationship. All right, let me jump with Daria real quick. All right. Now, the only thing I would say with you, Daria, is you have your Eva. I'm gonna say the same thing that I said to Derek. It's continuing on what we talked about last class. Find your names, I can send it right back to you. You want to write your results like this. Actually, you're missing R equals whatever the value is. All right, I send it right back to you. All right, Dewaya, depression test score. Now, Dewaya, what I see missing with yours is that you have depression, but you're not saying what the other variable is. And remember, I'd imagine that this right here is yours. Right, so that correlation is between depression, but it's also between the Wesker IQs. All right, Daria, looks like you got it. All right. All right, Siani, same thing. I'm going to send this to you. I'm going to use your data, assuming it's right, but you want to include your results like this, which is what we did last week. Or you can do it. I'll do a way that does work with what you're doing. All right, Siani Goodman, and yours is anxiety test and depression. All right, so again, you can cut out that second sentence. You actually have a second and a third sentence that's not needed because we get right to the point in psychology and we just do that immediately following. So your first sentence, you can add a comma right there. All right, same thing with you, Alex. I'm gonna say exactly the same thing. You guys might remember this from what we were supposed to be doing last week, right? We got a all right, let me see. Siani looks good. Dewaya. All right, I'm gonna send a message back to you, Dewaya. What you're missing, Dewaya, I'm actually not gonna send a message right back, but what you're missing is the format on how you're supposed to present the information. And I'm just gonna send you an example I sent to someone else. In that cell, it's all right there. You wanna make sure that you provide the information like one of these. All right, let me see if there's any other chats I'm looking for. All right, guys, we are now 3 minutes past the end of class. Okay, Noni, I want to give you some feedback because I see it's in here. I don't know, again, the way that you did your content, I don't know what variable you're looking at. But I will tell you this, you are comparing the wrong thing, right? The value, there's a couple things you're looking at. R equals the negative 0.328. And then your P equals 0.000. I just put it back to you directly. That is how you want to include your results. All right. Yeah. I think you're right, Deja. We probably want to talk, or you can send me an email to help out. All right, guys, it is now 5 minutes past. I'm not going to hold anybody any longer. I'm going to stop recording right now.